On episode 544 of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we meet Katie Gerber and discuss her book, Adventure Ready, A Hiker's Guide to Planning, Training, and Resiliency. If you've ever been interested in planning, preparing for, and doing some longer hikes, Katie shares a lot of great tips on this episode. You can find the full show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/544. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness Podcast is here for you. Each week, we dive deep into health and fitness topics that affect those of us over 40. I'm Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with specializations in corrective exercise, behavior change, and fitness nutrition, a FAI certified functional aging specialist, and an OTA Level 2 online trainer. I'm joined each week by our co-host, Rachel Everett. She is an NASM certified personal trainer and a RRCA Level 1 run coach. Let us be your coaches as you find your way on your health and fitness journey, all right? Let's go. Are you still struggling to lose weight? Do you get winded walking up a flight of stairs? Do you look in the mirror and see an older looking you staring back? Now, you can hit the jump forward button a couple times and forget we had this conversation, or you can listen to what I have to say. It doesn't have to be this way. We can wipe away the frustration and get amazing results. You can lose the weight. You can get more fit. You can look and feel years younger. I've designed the Be Fit for Task program to give you the jump start you've needed and the tools to keep you going. You'll have the guidance to find your path to health and fitness. You'll have direct accountability from me, Coach Allen, and you'll have support to get you through the hard spots. After the 6-week Be Fit for Task program, you'll have lost weight, gotten stronger and more fit, and you'll have the motivation and confidence to be the person you should be, fit for task. I'm so confident that Be Fit for Task will work for you that I'm offering a 40-day full money back guarantee. If you don't feel this program is doing everything I promise, I'll give you your money back. You have nothing to lose. I have a limited number of slots available, so pause this podcast and go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/BFFT to let me know you're interested in learning more. That's 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/BFFT. You can be fit for task with 40 Plus Fitness. 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/BFFT. Hey, Raz, how are things?
Good, Alan. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. Doing all right.
Good. Oh, well, that's good. Good to hear.
Yeah. Well, we're into the low season, and so what happens is we have all this blank time at Lula's. So you're looking at just day after day after day of no people here.
Oh.
Now, that could sound great to somebody, but it's revenue. We got to pay the bills. We still have employees. We still have electricity. We still have things we got to do. And so, we were just, there was nobody, no bookings at all. And so I was really only on one listing agent out there besides ourselves. So you can come directly to our website and book. But we were connected into one other, what they call OTA, which is just someone who sells your rooms for a commission. And we were on one, and they dried up, so we weren't getting any from them either. And so I've been working since we opened to try to get on these other places. And they just weren't happening. And I was like, I just don't understand. I do what I'm told to do, and then nothing happens. And so I managed over the course of the last 3 weeks to get on 2 of the other ones.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And that's helped a lot. Like cool. A lot of bookings are coming in through those 2 other sources, one in particular. And then there's one other source that I wanted to be on. Mm-hmm. And when I first tried to start doing this, like I said, this was back November. I'm trying to get on this one. And there was already an account. And so I was just trying to access the account. And things were a little backwards for them because to ask for help, you have to log in. Well, mm-hmm. I didn't have the login criteria. So I couldn't log in. Okay. and because I couldn't log in, I couldn't get to their extranet site to ask for help. And there's no external email or anything to contact them at all.
Wow.
There's
How
no way to
bizarre.
reset the password. There's no way to do anything else on that site. And so you're just completely locked out. So I created a new site. I created a new another one, like a just whole new start all over.
Mhm.
So there won't be any reviews on that and then all that. And that's fine. We'll work that out. But I go to set it up and they're like, we want to confirm your address. So they want to mail me something. Well, we don't get mail here.
Oh.
You can't physically mail something to me. You can
Oh,
mail it to an
no.
US address, but that's not going to confirm that I'm at a physical address. So then they want to do it online. And I've been going back and forth. They're like, are you on Airbnb? Send your listing stuff and we'll confirm you. I sent it and I got nothing. And then they send it again and they say, okay, well, we can get on a Zoom call with you. I'm like, cool. So I go to book the Zoom call. And then it comes back with this, okay, your appointment's set. It's going to be on Google Meet, but there's no link to the Google Meet. I email the woman. I'm like, I didn't get a link. I didn't get a code, nothing. And we're supposed to be on the call. It didn't happen. And so I book another one right after it on that same thing. And again, it never sends me a link to the meeting and she's not responding to emails. So it's just, I've been working on this for months and months and months, 7 months going on now. And just this one place, I'm not going to say their name out loud. But one of them that I was trying to get on because it's one of the bigger ones. They're not equipped to help people.
That is so bizarre. What a crazy thing.
So that's my morning frustration of supposing to have someone get on a Google call with me so I can confirm that we are who we say we are where we are. That fell through. And still she's not responding to my emails. And I'm like, I don't understand. It's,
No, terrible customer service.
It is. But we are on those other bookings. And so if you're looking for a vacation spot, come on down to Bocas del Toro. We've got rooms.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great.
So how are things up there?
100%. Things are great. I've had a really rough spring with allergies just to pick up mono, and I haven't been running for about a month because of the mono and the fatigue. But now I feel I'm back to normal, out there walking the trails and enjoying some time outside. So I'm feeling really good. The outside doesn't want to kill me right now.
The outside doesn't want to kill me right now.
Not now, anyway.
All right.
Yeah, feeling great.
I guess that's just one of the odd things. I really have never suffered with allergies.
Oh, you're so lucky.
And I lived in Austin, and I'll tell you, you move to Austin and you may not have these problems before you moved to Austin, but almost everybody who lives in Austin develops allergies. And I'm fortunate I never did, but I was only there for about 3 years. So maybe I just missed it. But yeah, I'm fortunate. And then here in the jungle, nothing.
That's awesome. That's really good.
Yeah.
I didn't have these problems in Florida. When I lived in Florida, it was not nearly this bad, but the trees on my property here, I'm pretty much allergic to most of them. So it's just my poor planning and taking notice of the wildlife in my area.
Okay. Well, I hope that things are good and that things are not trying to kill you and you can get back out to your running.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Are you ready to talk to Katie?
Yes.
All right. Our guest today is a certified holistic health and nutrition coach, wilderness instructor, guide, and writer. She's a seasoned long-distance hiker who has covered thousands of miles on trails and routes, including the Continental Divide Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, the Colorado Trail, the Wind River High Route, the Oregon Desert Trail, and on Colorado's highest peaks. She is the founder of Adventure Ready and Backpacker Academy, family of online courses, which are designed to help backcountry enthusiasts overcome a variety of obstacles so they can embark on adventures with confidence and spend more time outside. With no further ado, here's Katie Gerber. Katie, welcome to 40 Plus Fitness.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, your book is called A Hiker's Guide to Planning, Training, and Resiliency. And Adventure Ready, A Hiker's Guide to Planning, Training, and Resiliency. And, I have clients that hike and love hiking. I actually have one. He does a lot of day hiking. And then I just got a client, and his aspiration is to do the Appalachian Trail. He'll be
Awesome.
65. So he said he's going to break that into sections. And so I think when people think of hiking, because I know like here on the island or on the different islands, they'll put together hikes. There's a hiking group. I'm a member, although they tend to talk, they tend to plan a hike, like they'll email the day for a hike they're going to do tomorrow. And I'm like, I didn't have time to plan. I didn't have time to schedule. And no, I can't make that one. But so a lot of them work that way. But these are hikes through the jungle, and they're usually a few hours, like half day things. But hiking is really kind of this diverse sport, if you will. I mean, similar to running, where you could just do a 5K, or you can do a marathon, or you can do an ultra marathon, or, even take it further, some of the 100 miles, multiple days in a row. Can you talk about hiking and kind of some of those variables that maybe we haven't heard about, so we can get an idea of where we're going with this?
Sure. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So that was a great analogy with running. Like, there are many ways to engage with like hiking and backpacking and this whole world of like through hiking, which is something that my book speaks to. And so like with day hiking, that's what you're talking about. Like, you have that local group that does a lot of day hikes. So that's essentially just anytime you're getting out for the day, not sleeping out overnight. It could be a couple miles, or for some people, it could be like a 30-mile day. It could be a day hike. It's a big day hike, but it could be a day hike. And then there are these long trails that usually we're referring to. There's a debate about what a long trail is, but it's like the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail, anything that's usually like, 100 or so miles or more, anywhere up to a couple thousand. Like, the Continental Divide Trail is 2,800 miles. And there are different ways to hike that type of trail, to backpack that trail. Essentially, you could do it in sections. So some people will hike like a couple sections each year, and eventually what we call a through hike, which is to hike the entire trail. They will through hike it over maybe a decade or something by adding up sections. Or there's some people who like to go out and to hike the entire thing in one season. So maybe they start like the Appalachian Trail, for instance, like you're talking about your client. Maybe they'll start in late April in Georgia, one of the southern terminus of the Appalachian Trail, and hike all the way north up to Maine, the northern terminus, in one season. And so that's 2,200 miles. So there's a lot of different ways to engage in hiking and backpacking, kind of depending on your life and how deep you want to go.
Yeah. And if you're doing over 2,000 miles and you go the wrong direction, even a step, that's no fun.
You don't want to do it. Yeah.
That's no fun. And you guys had some we had some great stories in the book about exactly that, especially when you're talking about the orientating, and back before GPSs were really popular, and, you're looking at a map and you say, oh, well, that's that ridge. And you start walking that direction only to find that, no, the next ridge that you were looking for isn't there. So you got to turn around and go back to where you were.
Yeah, it's the worst. It's the worst feeling. Exactly. Especially when you're on like a 2,000-mile hike, even missing a trail junction by a mile and having to backtrack. You're just like, no. But yeah, that's why learning the navigational skill set can be really helpful.
And you do a really good job. I was in the military and had to do a good bit of that myself before the days of GPS. And yeah, the compass and the map are your friends if you learn and practice. And I think that was one of the key things you talk about in the book is this is a skill. It requires practice. And so you help us with that. Now, one of the things you put in there, and I love it because I live on an island in the Caribbean. And so people bring things here and they leave them. The locals are kind of the worst, but people will go out and they will make a trail less likable, less fun. And we've actually, because some of this stuff is private property, we've had owners just say, no, you can't come on my property anymore because of this. But you talk about the 7 principles of leave no trace. Can you go through those? Because I think it's really important when we're doing these things to make sure that we're doing them responsibly. So just to give people food for thought, if they're going to get out in nature, which is what you need to do, you should be out in nature. What's some protocols or etiquette we need to follow?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I appreciate that you're bringing this up because I think any of us who are going to spend time in the outdoors should be aware of these principles because, yeah, we just want to leave as little impact as possible out there so everyone can continue to enjoy it. So essentially, yeah, there are these 7 leave no trace principles that we talk about in the book. And obviously we didn't develop these there's a center called Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics. Essentially, these principles are designed to minimize our impact on the outdoors, help us be good stewards of the land that we're walking through. And so these principles are designed mostly for backcountry use, but they can be used anywhere, like you said, on like in a local park or on your trails out behind your house or anything like that. So sure, I'll briefly go through them and we can talk a little bit about each of them. So the first one is to plan ahead and prepare. So by planning ahead, essentially like individuals who are going out or groups that are going out can be better set up to stay safe and then to practice these leave no trace principles. So for example, if an inexperienced user goes out into the backcountry, maybe in the Sierras, and they don't know that there's a fire ban there because in the Southwest where I live in Colorado, and then, west of me, we have very severe wildfire problems in the summer. So if someone doesn't know there's a fire ban and they only brought food that can be cooked over a campfire, then they're almost like forced to start a campfire where they shouldn't be starting one. Or maybe if someone doesn't plan a trip properly and they don't know what the terrain is going to be like, and it's more rigorous than they expect, and they have to camp in a place that's not ideal, then they could be damaging some of the fragile surfaces, for example. So that's why planning ahead and preparing is the first step, is so that you can be a better practitioner of these leave no trace principles. So travel and camp on durable surfaces is the second one. So durable surface would be anything like sand, rock, ice, snow, anything that can withstand impact. Some vegetation can, some can't. And examples of non-durable surfaces would be like cryptobiotic soil, which is a type of living soil in the desert that prevents erosion. Delicate alpine tundra would be another one, like wet meadows where you trample the grass and it doesn't bounce back easily. So just knowing like what are durable surfaces, what aren't durable surfaces, traveling on trail where you can. And if you're traveling in a group, knowing how to minimize your impact on those non-durable surfaces, essentially. Knowing like where you can camp, where you're not going to cause further impact, and just how to go about that. And then the third one is dispose of waste properly. That refers to, of course, packing out your trash. A lot of people may have heard the phrase, pack it in, pack it out, but it also refers to human waste, which in many cases, like in a river corridor, should also be packed out. Or if you're in a fragile alpine environment, it should also be packed out. Or if you're going to bury your waste, which digging a cat hole is sort of the way to the accepted practice to go about that, to know that you have to dig it deep enough, 200 feet from water, away from high use areas, away from game trails and places that animals are going to use regularly. And then packing out your teepee in some places where it's moist and hot and it's going to break down. That's fine. It'll probably degrade. But in a lot of places, especially again, where I live, where it's dry, or if you're in the Alpine and it's just not going to break down because there's not enough heat and there's not enough moisture, just pack it out and knowing the best practices around that. And one other part of that whole topic of it's not really disposing of waste, but it kind of goes under this, is not putting soap into the waterways. A lot of people oh, well, it's a biodegradable soap, I can use it in the waterway, but we don't want to do that as well. So it's part of that leave no trace ethic. The fourth one is leave what you find, which is pretty straightforward. It's we go out there because we all want to see these beautiful flowers or we find beautiful rocks. Or when I was in Utah guiding last month, we were finding artifacts like old arrowheads and things like that. And it's so tempting for people oh, I want to take this home and I want to show it to people. It's so cool. But part of leave no trace ethics is just to leave what you find. Other people want to enjoy it as well. And then another part of that is to avoid landscaping an area with fire rings or log chairs or things like that. Avoiding moving things around too much in an area, or if you do, naturalizing it again before you leave the area. Minimizing campfire impacts is principle number 5. So that again, I mentioned fire bans. So knowing when and where fire bans are in effect, if you are allowed to build a fire in an area, knowing whether it's going to cause potential damage to the backcountry there, looking around, knowing, is there sufficient firewood that I'm not going to further impact the area? Will removal of this firewood be noticed? And then understanding how to minimize an impact if you do build a fire. If you build a fire ring, you should build it in a ring if the one exists. You should dismantle the ring if it doesn't exist. And there are other methods to building campfires that you can minimize your impact. Respecting wildlife is principle number 6. So that's just keeping your distance, not being too intrusive. I think we've all seen those national park photos where people are like having their cameras and they're like right up in like the moose's face, or like way too close to the bison or the bears. And it's, it's obviously stressing the animal out. And so it's like, we want to avoid that. We don't even want them to know of our presence, unless we're trying to just like sort of gently like spook them away so that we can pass through a trail. But it also means, not camping too close to a water source where we might be scaring the animal away from coming to the water source, not camping right on top of a game trail where we might interrupt their travel to and from where they're trying to go. So yeah, just generally being respectful of the wildlife. Like we're in their home. So we want to be, respectful, like we would being a house guest in someone else's home. So, and then the seventh one is being considerate of other visitors. We're all trying to be out there enjoying nature. And so I think just being cognizant of what you're doing, using your headphones instead of playing music loudly through a speaker, which might disrupt other people or disrupt the wildlife, or keeping your dog leashed, or just sharing the trail with other users, whether those are pedestrians or equestrians or bicyclists or whatever it is. Being thoughtful of other people so we can all enjoy the outdoors. Yeah. And if you want to learn more, it's just to say lnt.org is the place to go to really get all the details on that.
LNT for leavenotrace.org. Okay, yep. Cool. All right. Now it's the end of June. And so for most of the places that people would be either hiking or training, because that's the other side of it, is if you're going to start your hike next April to do the Appalachian Trail, for example, you're training now. Yes. And so you're getting out and training. And one of the things that happens for a lot of us is we're trying to push ourselves, because again, we're carrying a pack. That pack could be over 40 pounds, maybe 50 pounds sometimes when you first start with the food. And you're in the heat. So you've got to train your body to do that. We're going to talk about conditioning in a minute. But one of the things that hits a lot of us is just the heat and all those things that can happen with regards to illnesses, heat illnesses. So, we're talking about heat exhaustion, heat stroke. Can you kind of talk us through what we should be looking for as far as symptoms that the heat's starting to really be a problem for us and what we should do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely something valuable to be aware of. So yeah, as you were just saying, it kind of, so these heat illnesses can occur essentially like on a spectrum, like there's a progression. So like there's heat rash and heat cramping, which most of us are familiar with, like from exercising outdoors in the heat. Those are pretty common and can be prevented and treated by consuming adequate water and salts and cooling off and resting in the shade. And then, as you mentioned, there's more serious forms of that. So if those aren't treated, that would progress to heat exhaustion and then to heat stroke. And these also result from exercising in the heat and the humidity, not consuming enough water or salts, and they can essentially cause the body temperature to rise above critical levels. So prevention is best. So if we can stay hydrated, consume electrolytes, pay attention to when we're starting to overheat, and we can rest and not we are pushing ourselves, but maybe try to not push ourselves beyond what is comfortable in the heat, or at least just paying attention to our own body and what's going on in there. So you're asking about symptoms. So heavy sweating, muscle cramping, when you start to get a headache, nausea is a big one that I've seen before. Like if you're starting to get nauseous, dizzy, of course, fainting is a pretty obvious symptom. Pulse can change, either become really rapid or really weak. So when you're starting to see any of those changes, those should be like red flags, like, hey, it's time to slow down, find some shade, cool off immediately, whether it's by putting cold water on the skin, any way that you can cool down, replace some of those fluids in the body, take some electrolytes if you haven't been taking in any salts or anything like that. And then if you don't treat that, that can progress to that heat stroke, which is a medical emergency. So if it progresses to that point, and that's a temperature greater than 103, and some of the symptoms would be that you stop sweating, actually, you start to get slurred speech, and essentially there's any changes in consciousness, that's when you need medical help. And so hopefully you're carrying some sort of either a cell phone or an inReach device, which is like a satellite communication device that you can get yourself help.
Yeah. Or you're traveling with a hiking buddy. And so this is something also, if you notice that your hiking buddy is getting confused, they've stopped sweating, start asking them a couple questions that they should be able to answer. And if they really start struggling with those types of things, it's time to call it quits and get that person some help.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, we need to condition ourselves for this stuff, and you start thinking, how does one go about training for a 2,000-mile plus hike? And it kind of brings me back to my marathon days, and the way we would say it was you either do the work before, you either feel the pain before you do the run, or you're going to feel it after you do the run. But you're going to feel it during, because this is not just a one-day thing. And the phrase you used in the book, which I like, is to hike yourself into shape. And some people can and do that, but it's going to make for a very unpleasant first few weeks. Can you talk about how someone could go about planning a conditioning program? You have some in the book, so I don't want to. We don't have to give all that away. The stretching and all of this stuff we're going to talk about, that's in the book. But you can just give us an overview of how someone can look at planning their conditioning so they're ready. So, like my client that wants to be able to do this, in a few years, he wants to start conditioning himself for it. What should he be considering, and how should he be going about this?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's a great idea. So you can hike yourself into shape. So some people, they're kind of different schools of thought. Some people are like, oh, you don't have to do any training ahead of time. You'll hit the trail and just walking every day, you're going to hike into shape. And it's like, yeah, that's true in some cases, but you're going to be a lot more prone to overuse injuries and just to not completing the goal that you set out to do. So of course, I and my co-author Heather are big proponents of physically training yourself to be ready for that hike. And I think the longer out you can start, the better, because that way you're not going to be tempted to ramp up too quickly. So that's one of the principles, that we talk about with training is building a training plan for yourself where you're balancing cardiovascular training, strength, and mobility exercises, and rest, of course, because that's an important part of a training plan as well as giving your body enough time to adapt to the stressors from exercise that you're actually strengthening, building muscle, and not just wearing yourself down. So yeah, the training plans, we essentially talk about how to build your own individual training plan. And we go through some exercises in there where you can test yourself for muscle weaknesses. So that's one aspect of it, is doing different tests on your own body. So you can determine if you have places where you used to get injured a lot, we're going to invite you to focus extra strengthening effort in that area, whether through different exercises, whether that's through doing lunges or toe raises or calf raises or things like that. So figuring out where your personal weaknesses are, and then building a plan that builds your endurance by slowly building up the miles gradually, including enough rest days in there. And we talk about a protocol for how to figure out where to start, because it depends. Are you starting from the couch, or are you starting from someone who's already relatively in shape? So we kind of talk about how to build those miles gradually and what to start with and how to build up. And then including, those strengthening exercises and those mobility exercises, I was talking about, whether that's strengthening your inner thighs or strengthening your hip muscles or things like that. Any of those muscles you're going to use with backpacking. And essentially we're just trying to get the body adapted to carrying a weight on the back over uneven surfaces, because that's different than what a lot of us are used to and what a lot of our bodies are used to. So yeah, we talk about how to balance out those aspects in a training plan so that your body, you hit the trail with your body being ready, and you're not going to have to go home early from overuse injuries. And it's so much more enjoyable when you show up in shape. I've seen both sides of it. Yeah. Some people go off the couch and they just struggle a lot. And then other people, focus a lot of time into that training ahead of time. And you can hit the trail doing more miles, and it hurts so much less. And you can keep up with your friends if you're going in a group. So I'm definitely an advocate of training your body.
Yeah. I one of the things I kind of like about what you had in the book was it was also know yourself. So, it's put on a 40-pound pack and walk kind of the same grade of hills and things that you're going to be doing on there. And if you notice, okay, your core is not really stabilized well enough that you can handle a pack, well, you need to maybe bolster your core work. Maybe you're arching your lower back, and over time that's going to fatigue. You can do some cobras and some things like that to just make sure that you're in a better condition to handle how your body's going to respond. Because I saw something, and there was it's called where I got to find this because it was so cool. It was the trail pronation, which I guess, as you're carrying weight and you're moving up a trail, the way you walk, the way you move, it changes. It changes the whole dynamic of your kinetic chain.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, you have to look at the shoes you're wearing and be ready to change those out regularly. You also need to just, again, train yourself to be in that different position for hours at a time.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a good point as a lot of people, especially sometimes like if people are, they just do walking as they're training or they're transitioning from running or something like that, they kind of forget about how putting a pack that's anywhere from, 20 to 40 pounds on the back really changes like your center of gravity and how you carry your body. And exactly like you're just saying, like how does that affect how you move and how do you train for that?
Yeah. And then how much you've conditioned yourself then blends into the plan for the trail. It's like, if you're not going to be able to do 20 miles a day for 5 consecutive days, then you've got to come up with a plan for, well, one, okay, maybe it's going to take you a little longer. You're probably going to have to carry more food.
Mm-hmm.
So your pack might even be heavier and you're going to move slower.
Yeah.
But that's your plan and you have to kind of balance that out. And so knowing your conditioning, and then that helps drive your plan. Knowing your plan helps drive your conditioning. And it's kind of a back and forth thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Exactly like you said. Yeah. That knowing the daily mileage that you're capable of, what's comfortable for you, taking into consideration that, weather might get in your way or heavier pack might slow you down, all that stuff. Really ties into exactly like you said, how much food you're going to need to carry, when you're expected to get to point B and then point C and D, these resupply places along the trail. And, you're also thinking about, okay, am I going to finish in time to fit inside this like weather window is what we say, because you don't want to be out there on a 2,000-mile trail. It's a little different than planning for a 3-night or even a 5-night trip, because you're like, oh, I'm going to go out and it's June 1st through 6th. No problem. I know the weather is going to stay nice. But when you're out there for months at a time, you have to be kind of thinking about, okay, am I going to be able to finish in time? Am I going at a pace that's adequate to get me to Canada before the snow starts flying and all of that? So it's another reason why, being trained and like you're saying, just like knowing your body and what you're capable of is very valuable.
Yeah. Well, Heather did a fastest known time on the Appalachian Trail. I think if I did it, it would be the slowest time and I would have to go through a lot of snow, probably 2 years of it to get that baby done. But because that's something else. Now, we can talk about the physical preparation, but I know from experience that you can get yourself as physically prepared as you ever want to. You can have all your planning, you can have everything mapped out, but stuff happens, and this is hard stuff. I mean, you're not talking about, walking an hour or 2 hours and then calling it a day. You guys are doing upwards of 12, maybe even more hours to get the distances that you want to get so that you can, keep this sustainable for you. How do you mentally prepare for something like that?
Yes. Such a great topic, and one that I'm really love talking about with people, because it's something that a lot of aspiring through hikers or long distance hikers don't think as much about. They think a lot about, I've got to get the right gear and I have to practice my navigational skills and I've got to get my food ready and all that. And all those things are super important and we cover them in the book. But that mental preparation aspect, that's something I wasn't ready for on my first hike. I mean, I kind of had an idea from having read blogs and things like that. But you're going to be, there are some tough conditions out there. Like you said, you're not just out for an hour. Over the course of multiple weeks and months, you're going to encounter crappy conditions. You're going to miss your loved ones. You're going to be hungry. Your body's going to hurt no matter how well trained you are. There's going to be a lot of aspects to it that you can't really prepare yourself from like a physical perspective, but you can prepare your mind for it. So, I mean, I share the statistic in the book, but it's estimated that 75 to 85% of aspiring through hikers on what we call the Triple Crown trails, which is the AT, the PCT, and the CDT, actually quit before reaching their goal. And when you think about that, it's interesting because backpacking is, it's a skill set that you need to learn, but it's not particularly technical. Someone who does, who studies and goes out and practice, you can become proficient at it relatively quickly. And yeah, it's a great physical feat to accomplish, but you can adjust your pace, you can slow down and all of that. So like, why is it that so many people are failing to reach their goal when they're out there? And I think it's a lack of like mental preparation, failing to prepare your mind for the fact that it is going to be hard. Because I think when a lot of people are thinking about going out on these trails, they're thinking about all of those really desirable things, like the beautiful scenery and being away from their laptop or their work schedule, kind of being on their own time, the simplicity of being out there, all those things that draw us out there. But they're not necessarily thinking about the fact that they're going to have blisters on their heel that are the size of a quarter, and that they're going to run through their food too quickly and be hungry, or they're going to be scared at times, whether it's of animal or weather or anything like that. So yeah, there's a saying that's like through hiking success is 90% mental, and it's mental preparation. So that's why we kind of go through some different strategies in the book of how to prepare yourself mentally for a long hike. And I'm happy to dig into those if you want to get into those specifics.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I know, I've written a book too, so congratulations on the effort. But you also said you like to journal. You guys like to journal a lot.
Love to journal. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you were already sitting around with a notebook every day after you finished your hike, or maybe even the morning before you started your hike. So I imagine that discipline of journaling helped you with writing this book as well. So I know that was one of the big ones but the one that was most interesting to me was the practice voluntary hardship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's an interesting one. I think that you don't necessarily think of right away. But so for me, that came about really when I started running. When I was younger, I did cross country like in junior high and high school. And I noticed that when I would, so to become skilled at anything, it's practice and it's putting in the hours. And I would notice that when I made myself go out on the rainy days or go do twice a days in the afternoons. So I grew up in Ohio and it was hot and humid in August, but I would make myself go in the morning and then go again in the afternoon, no matter how much I didn't want to. And it was amazing because I would get out there and I would be like, oh, this isn't like that bad. I survived this. Like, oh, I went out in the rain and I survived it. And so I think that principle of practicing voluntary hardship is like building your inner resiliency, like letting yourself, your body and your mind know, I can do this hard thing. I'm capable of it, and this hard thing isn't going to, it might not be even as hard as your mind is telling you it's going to be. Like with those runs, I was saying, oh, I got out there and I was like, oh, I got wet. Okay. That's not a big deal. Not, I'm fine. Or just putting yourself in those situations, anything that's sort of a little bit on your edge of discomfort, to just train your body and your mind into that belief and knowingness that you're capable. You can do those challenging things.
Yeah, well, I had an author on it. I know his first name was Michael, but his book was called the Comfort Crisis, and it was a great book on this topic. He got himself in a situation where he just got dropped off with these guys out in the tundra, about as far north as you could ever go, and he spent 30 days out there. And, it's kind of one of those things of it taught him that, and these hard things they'll teach you this, that, you guys said words like embrace the suck, or, those types of things. And it's funny to say, it's not funny when you're doing it, but then after it's over and you survive, it's kind of like, well, good. I feel like I've accomplished more because I went through this hard thing. And I think that's where the kind of the buildup of all of this, is going, is, okay, yes, you can journal, you can meditate, you can breathe. And those are all important things just for life. I mean, not everything in life. But if you make things hard on yourself here and there, it just gives you this resilience from a mental perspective that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's, like a big trend in wellness, and it's not just a trend, but it's, there's lots of like science and research behind it, is like cold baths and cold exposure. And part of it is like, yes, it does have absolutely like benefits for your mitochondria and inflammation, all of that. But I think part of it too is like the mental benefits. It's like exactly. It's like showing yourself that like you can do hard things and you can get through it. And that makes you more capable for other hard things in life.
Yeah, because I prefer the heat shock proteins of going out when it's in the high 80s and putting up with that versus the cold any day. But maybe I need to do that. But I don't actually have anywhere I can take a bath here, so I'll have to figure that. And the ocean is 70 degrees. So it's not going to do what I need to
That won't
do.
do
But
it. Yep.
no, I won't do it. But I agree with you there. Katie, I define wellness as being the healthiest, fittest, and happiest you can be. What are 3 strategies or tactics to get and stay well?
Yes, that's a great question. So, of course, I'm going to say daily time outside. For me, that is probably one of like the biggest, most valuable wellness practices in my own life. Even if it's just, if you only have time for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, getting outside, ideally as close to sunrise as possible, getting that natural light into your eyes, setting your hormones, optimizing those for the day, your circadian rhythm, all of that, and just the stress relief benefits of being outside. I think it's so, so valuable. I think having something planned each day that you look forward to or that you're excited about, whether it's a walk outside or for me, like journaling time over my coffee or my tea, whatever it is, time with a loved one, snuggling a pet, whatever it is, maybe it's part of a morning ritual, anything that I think like feeds and nourishes you is such a great antidote for the busy and often like stressful lives many of us live in the modern life or find ourselves in, whether it's a stressful day or a season of life, just having those things each day that we can look forward to, I think are real. It's just really important, having that reason to get out of bed. And then that kind of leads into my third one, which is, and it's something similar we talk about in the book, is like knowing your why, having that strong sense of purpose or vision for what you are putting your energy towards each day, what you're putting your time towards in this season of life. Something that just like keeps you going through the inevitable challenges that you're going to face in day-to-day life, just having that strong sense of why and purpose.
Thank you for that. So the book is called Adventure Ready, A Hiker's Guide to Planning, Training, and Resiliency. If someone wanted to learn more about that book or learn more about you, Katie, or your co-author, Heather, where would you like for me to send them?
Sure. The best place to go would be katiegerber.com, which is my website. And then my co-author and I, Heather, are both active on Instagram. And so mine is at Katie Gerber and she's at Words of the Wild. So you can find either of us there. And I have more information about those online courses that are the companion to the book there. There's also a free backpacker nutrition course on there. So lots of backpacking resources on my website for anyone who is interested in doing more long distance hiking, backpacking, day hiking, any of that. So just want to help people get started and get out there safely and confidently.
Great. You can go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/544, and I'll be sure to have the links out there. Katie, thank you so much for being a part of 40 Plus Fitness.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a lot of fun talking to you.
Welcome back, Raz.
Hey, Alan, what a great interview. And listening to Katie talk really just invigorated my excitement about hiking. And I've got a big hike planned this fall. We're supposed to be hiking across Isle Royale up in Lake Superior, northern Michigan. And all the tips that she had to share with you were just fantastic. It was a great interview.
Yeah, it's a really good book. She and Heather, Katie and Heather, they're pros. I mean, they do this regularly. They've done it for a while, and they know their things. They know their stuff. With Heather having the record fastest known time for the trail. That's not something you just get by showing up.
No.
Nope. You got to keep moving. You got to keep doing it. And so that's why I thought it was really important to have them on to talk about this book because a lot of people, this is an accessible thing for a lot of people. Now, maybe not, 2,200 mile hike throughs, but that said, you break it into segments, you break it into pieces. Most of us are going to live within daily reaching distance to do a day trip, to go out and just do a day hike.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a great way to reconnect with nature. It's a great way to just get away from all the digital toxins and stuff in our lives. Don't take your phone except to have it in your pocket as a GPS if you get lost,
right,
or to call for help. But just this great opportunity for you to get out, see things that most people don't see because they don't bother to venture out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So many things to chat about. She had mentioned showing up in shape and being prepared. And I just wanted to highlight that, going on a hike is a little different than just walking to your mailbox or walking through the grocery store or something. Sometimes these trails, like my little trail downtown that I use a lot, is asphalt paved. I can't get lost. So it's a perfect trail for me. But there's a lot of dirt trails and there's a lot of things to see out there. And it's a little bit of different type of hiking, and you need to be prepared for that different type of walking.
Yeah. And the weather and everything else. And that's what's,
Yes.
in this book, that was one of the other things is they do a really good job of walking you through the planning. There's worksheets. There's all kinds of things in there for you to literally plan your hike and then go do your hike. And yeah, I wanted to discuss that with her, the preparation, at least from a physical perspective and then from a mental perspective, because yes, you can plan to use the hike as part of your training, because if you do fewer miles at the beginning, and then you can build up your endurance and you can do more. And maybe if you're working really hard, I know if I tried to take 3 months off to go do something like that, then I'm going to be working my butt off those last days, and they're going to be long days, and I'm not going to have training time during the week. And maybe not even on the weekends, as I'm trying to get myself ready to take that kind of time off to go do it. So, you train how you can with what you have to get yourself in the right kind of shape, because the worst thing you want to get into is that you throw that 40-pound pack on your back and you can't really even do it.
Right.
That's not good. Your 3-month hike just became a 3-year hike. Because you can't do it. So you're going to want to be at some level of condition to be able to hit some mile markers, so you're going to want to be able to put some miles in. So the training's important, but you will be able to somewhat train yourself to be better as you go. So you can even factor that a little bit into the plan of a gradual, as I like to say, gentle nudges of additional mileage as you go. As long as, again, and she even said this in the book, is you got to factor in your rest days, Heather didn't take too many rest days when she was breaking the record, but when you're going at it, you might plan, okay, we're going to be near this city, this town, and I'm going to go act like a townie for a little while and eat restaurant food and sleep in a hotel bed and take showers, lots of showers. And then, you can go for another sprint, but, you have to factor in who you are, where you are, and then do that. And then the mental side of it, I was telling you before we got on the call, I was going to do 9 miles Sunday, and I kind of didn't feel really good about my digestive system. I didn't want to have messy pants. And so I just stayed around town. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stay between my house and the gym. They're about a little over half a mile away. So I'm just walking down towards the gym and sort of walking right back towards the house. And I do a couple loops and I'm like, okay, I feel pretty good. And then I got about a mile out of town on an out and back. And so I'm somewhere around 5 miles. And I noticed that my arm is chafing and it's very uncomfortable. So now I have this, do I quit or do I not? Scenario, and I was like, well, I have a mile to walk back, and then, I could put something on it, but then am I going to really want to get out and continue to do this, or would I just quit? And so I was like, no, I'm just going to finish it. And this is uncomfortable, but I'm going to embrace the suck, if you will. Just keep going. And today I'm wearing a tank top. That was a tank top too, but I'm wearing a tank top with a much bigger drop in the sleeves. So
good.
I'm not scuffing it as I go or chafing it. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. We're preparing this trip for Isle Royale, and we've been planning it for over a year. We're going to walk about 50 miles across from island end to end, and there are no showers. There's no gas stations to pick up food. So we're practicing everything that we need to have on this island right now. Actually, over the weekend, Mike and I were testing some different freeze-dried foods, the really lightweight camping foods that we'll be packing in. We're testing our equipment. We're making sure our tent can withhold some leaks if it rains. There's a lot of planning that goes into that. But also, while you can do some conditioning on a hike like that, it is good that you arrive fit. and having practiced your equipment and know what it feels to wear a 30, 40, 50 pound backpack. I mean, there's certain things you can't just show up as a newbie. The first time Mike and I hiked Isle Royale with our family, gosh, I think it's going on 30 years ago. It was really neat to see this wonderful newlywed couple. They had chosen Isle Royale as their honeymoon vacation, and the woman had never hiked before in her life. And when we did find them at the end of the island, her feet were just blistered because she didn't practice her boots. She wasn't prepared for the backpack. I mean, there's just a myriad of problems that she had, but she gutted it out. You know, she made it to the end, which is amazing. But my best advice, if you want a successful and happy and fun trip, is to show up fit and practice to the best of your ability.
Yeah. And that's what the preparation is key. And that's one of the things that this book is really good about, because it asks you all the questions. I mean, so it's like something you're going to say, like you were just talking about food. How many calories will you be burning every day? So how many do you need to consume to maintain? And so it's not the normal what you eat. You can say, well, I only eat 1,600 calories a day. Well, that's when you're sitting at the computer doing your job, driving around. You're not walking 12, 15, 20 miles a day or more. And because some of these hikes, they're doing 8 to 10 hours of movement per day.
Easily.
And so they're looking at their calorie requirements and saying, okay, that's easily 3,000 calories. And this is for a woman. It's a lot. But they need to have that amount of calories. And how much do all those calories weigh? Because if you're carrying a casserole dish full of food, it's heavy. So the freeze-dried stuff, the granolas, the stuff like that, and then knowing that it's something you can tolerate. Because the kind of worst case thing is that you get out there and you eat something that doesn't agree with you. And you're not making your miles those days because you're in a bush in a squat position.
That's a problem. We have very precise transportation on both sides of the island. We get dropped off at a certain time, and then we get picked up on the other side of the island in I think 7 or 8 days. So we need to be there no matter what. Otherwise, we ain't getting off the island. So, it's very important that you know how to practice all these things. And like she said, the mental aspect of it, if you've got blisters, you've got an upset stomach, you've got chafing, these things are very common, and you need to be mentally prepared to push through it. Like in our case, when we have a very specific time, we need to meet our plane. So, there's a lot to it, but it's so fun. It's so
well, you do need to check out this book. I think this will help you a lot.
I think it will. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you next week.
Take care.
You too.
Thanks.
Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we discuss a way to check in with yourself that will keep you motivated and moving toward your health and fitness goals. Until then, have a happy and healthy week.